Today we're revisiting the cast of Kojak you once loved, and uncovering what really happened after the cameras stopped rolling. From mysterious disappearances to million-dollar highs, their real lives became far more dramatic than the show itself. Step behind the scenes with us, because some of these stories were never meant to be seen. Telly Savalas as Lieutenant Theo Kojak. Aristoteles Telly Savalas was born on January 21, 1922, in Garden City, New York. At 51 years old, he played Lieutenant Theo Kojak, the relentless, sharp-eyed New York detective, in Kojak, 1973 to 1978. His performance did more than carry the show. It became the identity of the series itself. That authority on screen was forged in a difficult childhood. Raised in a poor Greek immigrant household as one of 5 children, he grew up surrounded by financial strain and constant pressure to survive. He served in the U.S. Army during World War II and suffered serious injuries in a car accident that required long recovery. By the time he appeared in Birdman of Alcatraz and later stunned audiences as Blofeld in On Her Majesty's Secret Service, he had already lived through hardship that shaped his intensity. Fame did not bring peace. His first marriage to Catherine Nicolaides ended in 1957. His second marriage to Marilyn Gardner collapsed in 1974 after years of separation. During the height of Kojak, he lived with Sally Adams, and after their breakup, legal disputes over financial support followed. Even while acting in major productions like Kelly's Heroes, his personal life remained unstable until he married Julie Hovland in 1984, seeking steadiness after decades of emotional turbulence. Then illness struck with force. In 1989, he was diagnosed with transitional bladder cancer, which later progressed alongside prostate cancer. Treatments were exhausting and painful, yet he continued working into the early 1990s, appearing in projects such as Mind Twister. The man who once dominated interrogation rooms was now fighting a private battle that steadily weakened him. Telly Savalas died on January 22, 1994, at the age of 72, just one day after his birthday, from complications of bladder and prostate cancer in Universal City, California. He was buried at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Hollywood Hills, following a Greek Orthodox funeral attended by family and prominent figures from Hollywood. At the time of his death, his net worth was estimated at around $5 million. His voice fell silent, but the image of Kojak remained etched into television history. Kevin Dobson as Detective Bobby Crocker. Kevin Patrick Dobson was born on March 18, 1943, in Jackson Heights, New York. At 30 years old, he played Detective Bobby Crocker, the loyal young protege of Lieutenant Theo Kojak, in Kojak, 1973 to 1978. His presence gave the series heart, balancing Kojak's toughness with youth and quiet integrity. But the steady confidence audiences saw on screen was built on years of uncertainty. Raised in a working-class Irish family as one of 7 children, Dobson grew up watching his father work as a school janitor, while his mother stayed home to hold the family together. He first worked as a trainman and conductor for the Long Island Railroad until he walked away from it all to pursue acting. The early years were punishing. Failed auditions, borrowed suits, and brief appearances in projects like Clute and the Mod Squad. Even after signing with Universal Studios, he had to audition 3 times before finally winning the role of Crocker. That breakthrough brought fame, but not certainty. Dobson married Susan in 1968, and their marriage endured for more than 5 decades, producing 3 children, Mariah, Patrick, and Sean. Yet professionally, the shadow of being Kojak's partner lingered. His series Shannon collapsed after only 9 episodes, a painful reminder of how fragile success could be. Redemption arrived when he joined Knots Landing in 1982 as Mac Mackenzie, earning multiple awards and rebuilding his standing as a leading man. Just as his career stabilized, his health began to falter. An autoimmune deficiency gradually weakened his heart, reducing the energy of the once vigorous detective audiences remembered. Though he continued appearing in shows like Days of Our Lives and remained active in veterans organizations, the illness quietly tightened its grip. The strong, dependable presence on screen was now fighting a battle invisible to viewers. Kevin Dobson died on September 6, 2020, at the age of 77 in Stockton, California, from heart failure linked to his autoimmune condition. At the time of his death, his net worth was estimated at around $5 million, earned through decades of steady television work. In the end, he remained what he had always portrayed: Dan Frazer as Captain Frank McNeil. Daniel Thomas Frazer was born on November 20, 1921, in Hell's Kitchen, Manhattan, New York. At 52 years old, he played Captain Frank McNeil, the disciplined supervisor and steady counterweight to Kojak, in Kojak, 1973 to 1978. His controlled performance gave the series balance and credibility. Growing up as the youngest of 10 children in one of New York's toughest neighborhoods, Frazer learned resilience early. Poverty and street violence were part of daily life. He served in the U.S. Army during World War II, where he became involved in theatrical work through special services. His screen career began in 1950, and he appeared in films such as Lilies of the Field, while building a steady television presence that eventually led to Kojak. His marriage to Lillian Lee Hogsett lasted from 1943 until her death in 1999, and together they raised one daughter, Susanna. After Kojak, he continued portraying authority figures in series such as the World Turns, and later Law and Order. The long run on daytime television provided financial stability, though audiences continued to associate him with stern police leadership. In his later years, he remained in Manhattan, maintaining a quiet life away from the intense spotlight that once surrounded the series. His career spanned decades, marked by consistency rather than scandal. The image of Captain McNeil followed him, but he carried it with dignity. Dan Frazer died on December 16, 2011, at the age of 90, from cardiac arrest at his home in Manhattan. His passing was calm and private. His net worth was estimated between $2 and $3 million at the time of his death, built through more than 60 years of steady work. He left behind a legacy of discipline and quiet strength that helped define one of television's most respected crime dramas. George Savalas as Detective Stavros. Georgios Demosthenes Savalas was born on December 5, 1924, in the Bronx, New York City. At 49 years old, he played Detective Sergeant Demosthenes Stavros in Kojak, 1973 to 1978. His warm, understated performance softened the hard edges of the series and grounded its emotional core. Yet long before television recognition, life demanded toughness. Raised in a Greek immigrant household struggling to survive in the Bronx, he grew up alongside his brother Telly in a tightly bound but financially strained family. During World War II, he served in the Pacific as a U.S. Navy gunner, performing in stage productions for fellow soldiers between combat assignments. After the war, he studied drama at Columbia University while juggling jobs as a taxi driver and waiter. He appeared in films such as Kelly's Heroes and performed off-Broadway in productions like Death of a Salesman, slowly building credibility in the shadow of his famous brother. That shadow never fully disappeared. In the first 2 seasons of Kojak, he was credited simply as Demosthenes to avoid accusations of favoritism. Critics whispered about nepotism, and comparisons to Telly followed him relentlessly. At home, he carried the responsibilities of a large family, marrying Robin Aber in 1968 and raising 6 children. While his brother's fame soared, George's career remained quieter, leading him back to stage work and Greek folk music performances, including appearances at Carnegie Hall. Then came the illness that silenced him. Leukemia struck swiftly, draining his strength and forcing him away from performance. The lively, dependable detective who once filled precinct rooms with humor was now confined to hospital visits and fading stamina. His final months unfolded away from cameras, without fanfare. George Savalas died on October 2nd, 1985, at the age of 60 in Los Angeles from leukemia. His passing came 9 years before his brother Telly's death, deepening the tragedy within the family. His net worth was estimated at under $1 million, reflecting a career built more on dedication than fortune. Though often remembered as Kojak's brother, he left behind a legacy of loyalty, perseverance, and quiet strength that extended far beyond the shadow he lived under. Vince Conti as Detective Gino Rizzo. Vincent Thomas Conti was born on November 22, 1930, in New York City. At about 43 years old, he played Detective Gino Rizzo, the fiery, street-smart Italian-American officer, in Kojak beginning in Season 2. His presence added raw New York authenticity to the squad room and reinforced the show's urban edge. Before acting, Conti worked professionally as a photographer, developing a trained eye for composition and character. When he transitioned to television, he frequently portrayed tough law enforcement figures, roles that suited his background and presence. In addition to Kojak, he appeared in Kojak, The Belarus File, 1985, and maintained steady guest work in crime-centered television during the 1970s and 1980s. Following his run on Kojak, Conti continued to secure smaller but consistent roles, often cast in ethnic or streetwise parts that echoed Detective Rizzo's energy. While these roles limited range, they kept him active in the industry and sustained his connection to crime drama audiences. His parallel work in photography remained an important professional identity alongside acting. Over time, his screen appearances became less frequent, but his contributions to Kojak endured in syndication and revival films. Vince Conti died on September 5, 2018, at the age of 87 from natural causes. His passing marked the quiet close of a career built on character roles rather than headline fame. His estimated net worth was approximately $1 million, earned through years of television work and professional photography. Mark Russell as Detective Percy Saperstein. Mark Russell was born in February 1929 in Brooklyn, New York. At about 45 years old, he played Detective Percy Saperstein, the sharp, observant Jewish detective, in Kojak beginning in Season 2. His character appeared in 69 episodes and strengthened the rhythm of the precinct with dry wit and steady intelligence. Russell served in the United States Army before entering acting in 1959 with a role on Bonanza. Through the 1960s, he became a familiar face across American television, appearing in The Fugitive, Mission Impossible, Star Trek, the original series, and Batman. Originally hired as a stand-in for Telly Savalas, he impressed producers enough that Detective Saperstein was created specifically for him. The visibility from Kojak brought steady work, but also a fixed image. He continued guest roles in Columbo, Hawaii Five-0, and Mannix, frequently portraying detectives, officials, or authority figures. The consistency provided financial security and industry respect, though leading roles remained rare. Even so, his repeated presence across primetime television made him a recognizable part of 1970s and 1980s crime drama culture. As the years progressed, Russell gradually stepped back from acting while remaining connected to the craft. His career, spanning from the late 1950s through the 1980s, reflected persistence more than spectacle. The identity of Detective Saperstein followed him, but so did decades of disciplined television work. In 2026, Mark Russell is approximately 97 years old and living quietly. His estimated net worth is around $2 million, accumulated through a long and steady career in film and television. Though never the headline star, his role in Kojak secured his place in one of television's defining crime dramas. Roger Robinson as Detective Gil Weaver. Roger Robinson was born on May 2, 1940, in Seattle, Washington. At 33 years old, He played Detective Gil Weaver, one of the first black detectives in the squad, in the Kojak pilot and 12 episodes of the series. His presence quietly shifted the tone of the show, bringing dignity and depth to a role rarely written that way in the early 1970s. That role carried weight because Robinson's early life was shaped by racial barriers. Growing up in Seattle as a black child in a segregated America, he faced discrimination long before stepping onto a stage. He trained in classical theater and made his Broadway debut in 1969 in Does a Tiger Wear a Necktie, alongside Al Pacino. Yet Hollywood often confined him to criminal or background roles. Even as he appeared in films like Willie Dynamite and Newman's Law, opportunities remained limited, and Kojak became one of the first times he portrayed law enforcement with authority rather than suspicion. Television visibility did not end the struggle for range. Robinson continued appearing in projects such as King, Homicide, Life on the Street, and Law and Order, but it was the stage that ultimately defined him. He performed in 6 of August Wilson's 10 plays chronicling African-American life and earned a Tony nomination for 7 guitars. Decades after Kojak, he achieved his greatest triumph in 2009, winning the Tony Award for Joe Turner's Come and Gone. The industry that once confined him finally recognized his depth. As he aged, heart complications began to weaken him. Even so, he continued working, appearing in films like Brother to Brother, which earned him festival honors and renewed acclaim. The actor who once fought for visibility on television was now celebrated as a master of American theater. Roger Robinson died on September 26, 2018, at the age of 78 in Escondido, California, due to heart-related complications. His passing closed a career that bridged television and Broadway with rare integrity. His estimated net worth was around $3 million, built steadily across decades of disciplined work. He left behind a legacy far greater than his episode count. He left proof that persistence could outlast prejudice. Sylvester Stallone as Detective Rick Daley. Sylvester Stallone was born on July 6, 1946, in Hell's Kitchen, New York City. At 27 years old, he played Detective Rick Daley, a young officer caught in a hostage crisis, in the Kojak episode Siege of Terror, 1973. Though it was only a single appearance, the role marked one of his early steps inside the crime drama world before global fame arrived. That brief television role stood in sharp contrast to the chaos of his early life. Born with partial facial paralysis caused by complications during delivery, his slurred speech and uneven smile became targets of ridicule. He grew up in poverty so severe that, at one point, he sold his dog because he could not afford to feed it. After that, he drifted through minor roles and was repeatedly cast as street thugs. Even after appearing in small films, he struggled for credibility, until he locked himself in a room and wrote Rocky, 1976. Fame brought triumph and turbulence in equal measure. He married Sasha Chak in 1974 and had 2 sons, Sage Moonblood Stallone and Sear Joe. Their marriage ended in 1985. His second marriage to Brigitte Nielsen lasted just 2 years under intense tabloid scrutiny. In 1997, he married Jennifer Flavin, and together they raised 3 daughters, Sophia, Sistine, and Scarlett, forming the most stable chapter of his personal life. Yet heartbreak followed him. His son Sage died in 2012 at age 36 from heart disease, a loss that deeply marked him. Physical strain became another cost of that image. During Rocky IV, he was hospitalized after taking a powerful punch from Dolph Lundgren that left him in intensive care. He broke his neck filming The Expendables and required a metal plate insertion. Decades of performing his own stunts left lasting injuries, but he refused to slow down. The body that once symbolized strength bore the scars of relentless ambition. In 2026, Sylvester Stallone is 80 years old and remains active, leading the crime series Tulsa King with the same gravel-voiced intensity that first appeared decades ago. His net worth is estimated at over $400 million, built from Rocky, Rambo, The Expendables, and later recognition, including a Golden Globe for Creed. Bruce Kirby as Sergeant Al Vine. Bruce Kirby was born Bruno Giovanni Guidacciolo on April 28, 1925, in New York City. At about 48 years old, he played Sergeant Al Vine in 6 episodes of Kojak. Though his role was limited, his seasoned presence added credibility to the precinct and strengthened the ensemble. Kirby was the son of Italian immigrants and trained under Lee Strasberg, absorbing method acting at its source. His early television work spanned series such as Car 54, Where Are You?, Bonanza, and Ironside, building a reputation as a dependable character actor. By the time he appeared in Kojak, he was already known for portraying police officers, a pattern that followed him throughout his career. That image solidified further when he became widely recognized as Sergeant George Kramer in Columbo, appearing 9 times and becoming one of the show's most familiar supporting figures. He continued portraying authority roles in L.A. Law, where he appeared in 13 episodes as District Attorney Bruce Rogoff and later in The West Wing. The uniform, it seemed, rarely left him. Behind the steady career were personal losses. His son, actor Bruno Kirby, died in 2006, a tragedy that deeply affected him. Even so, he remained active in television through the 2000s, appearing in The Sopranos and Scrubs, proving that longevity could outlast typecasting. Bruce Kirby died on January 24, 2021, at the age of 95 in Los Angeles from natural causes. His career stretched across 7 decades, marked by consistency rather than spectacle. His estimated net worth was around $5 million, earned through relentless character work. Richard Gere as Gino Pappas. Richard Tiffany Gere was born on August 31, 1949 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. At 24 years old, he played Gino Pappas, the young man pulled into danger, in Kojak, 1973 to 1978. Even in one episode, he registered as a face you couldn't ignore, the kind TV crime shows rarely forgot. That intensity didn't come from nowhere. He grew up in a middle-class home, but he wasn't chasing comfort. He was chasing meaning, studying philosophy and moving toward Buddhism in his 20s. He entered acting through theater, took risks early, and fought his way into film with roles that proved he wasn't just pretty, like Days of Heaven, 1978. And then, when American Gigolo, 1980, exploded, the industry stamped him with a label that would haunt him: sex symbol. The spotlight followed him into love, and it didn't always leave room to breathe. He married Cindy Crawford in 1991, a relationship so public it felt like a product, and it ended in 1995. In 2002, he married Carrie Lowell, and they had a son, Homer James Jigme Gere. Then the marriage broke apart in 2013 and turned into a long, contested divorce that dragged on until 2016. Then he chose a fight that cost him roles. Gere's Tibet activism and his decision to confront China publicly, most famously at the 1993 Academy Awards, made him radioactive to big studios chasing the Chinese market, and he paid for it with opportunities that simply stopped coming. He rebuilt through sharper work, winning a Golden Globe for Chicago, 2002, and later proving his dramatic weight in Arbitrage, 2012. In 2023, pneumonia landed him in the hospital during a family trip, a scare that briefly reminded fans that even legends can be taken down fast. In 2026, Richard Gere is 77 years old and still acting, including the recent film Oh Canada. His estimated net worth is around $120 million, but his real price tag was something money can't fix: the years of being reduced to an image, then punished for a cause. He's still here, still working, just with fewer doors open, and a legacy that feels both glamorous and bruised. Harvey Keitel as Jerry Taliba. Harvey Johannes Keitel was born on May 13, 1939 in Brooklyn, New York. At 34 years old, he played Jerry Taliba, the tense man at the center of a crisis, in the Kojak episode Siege of Terror, 1973. He didn't need many minutes to leave a mark, because menace and conscience were already fighting inside his face. That edge was shaped early. He grew up in Brighton Beach as the son of Jewish immigrants who ran a lunch counter, and money was always tight enough to keep the household on alert. He joined the U.S. Marines at 16, then returned and spent years grinding through ordinary work before committing to acting. When he finally broke through with Scorsese, Mean Streets, 1973, and later Taxi Driver, 1976, he looked like a man who'd survived something, not a man pretending. Love didn't spare him the chaos, it just changed its shape. He had a long relationship with Lorraine Bracco that ended in bitterness, followed by a bruising custody fight over their daughter Stella. A later relationship brought another son, Hudson, and that too turned into court and child support battles. Keitel eventually married actress Daphne Kastner after reconnecting in 2001, and they had a son, Roman, proof that his private life could still restart, even after years of emotional wreckage. And his career mirrored that same pattern: rise, rupture, reinvention. He was fired from Apocalypse Now after filming began, a humiliation that echoed through Hollywood. The 1980s boxed him into tough guy parts and pushed him into European work, until the 1990s snapped him back into relevance. Reservoir Dogs, 1992, Pulp Fiction, 1994, and then the brutal centerpiece of Bad Lieutenant, 1992, that made audiences look at him differently. He became not just an actor, but a gatekeeper of craft, serving as a co-artistic director of the Actors Studio for years. In 2026, Harvey Keitel is 87 years old, living in Los Angeles and still active, his name still carrying the weight of New Hollywood and the Tarantino revival. His estimated net worth is around $60 million, earned from decades of characters who never stayed clean, never stayed safe, and never begged for sympathy. Héctor Elizondo, as Detective Nick Farrow. Héctor Elizondo was born on December 22, 1936, in New York City. At 36 years old, he played Detective Nick Farrow, a no-nonsense investigator pulled into the case, in the Kojak episode Web of Death, 1973. Even in one episode, he helped widen the show's world, making the precinct feel like a real New York machine with many moving parts. That credibility came from a life that refused to be simplified. Raised on the Upper West Side as the son of Puerto Rican parents of Spanish descent, he grew up with money always tight and expectations heavy. He had talent for sports and music, trained as an athlete, and later moved through boxing and jazz before deciding acting. He dropped out of college after becoming a father in his teens, worked full-time, then returned to the arts through dance and serious training at Stella Adler's studio. When he began landing stage work, Steam Bath turned into a breakthrough. He won an Obie Award and proved he could dominate a room without playing a stereotype. That fight followed him into Hollywood. Elizondo refused to anglicize his name, and he also refused roles that reduced Latino men into bad guys, which meant doors closed, auditions dried up, and the same type of parts kept circling back. He kept pushing anyway, carving space through sharp character work in films like The Taking of Pelham 123, and later building a second life in mainstream hits, Pretty Woman and The Princess Diaries. The more people tried to pin him into one category, the more he quietly expanded it, then locked in long-term visibility with Chicago Hope and hundreds of episodes on Last Man Standing. Then came the twist that made his story sting in a different way. Stability was never the prize Hollywood promised, but he built it at home. Elizondo has been married to Carolee Campbell since 1969, one of the rare marriages in the industry that didn't turn into gossip or collapse. While his career demanded constant reinvention, that relationship became the fixed point that kept him from being swallowed by the business. In 2026, Héctor Elizondo is 89 years old and living in Sherman Oaks, California, still respected and still present in the industry's memory. His estimated net worth is around $10 to $12 million, earned through more than 80 films and long-running television success. He didn't just survive typecasting, he outlasted it, and he did it without changing his name, his roots, or his standards. Nearly 5 decades later, the faces of Kojak, 1973 to 1978, tell two very different stories. Who they were then and who they became now. Some rose to global fame, some faded quietly, and some left us far too soon. Which transformation surprised you the most? If you enjoyed this look at the Kojak, 1973 to 1978, cast then and now, don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell us in the comments which classic show we should revisit next.